As the Persian warships passed down this canal on their way to the west, the Greeks prepared to meet their enemy. They chose an ideal location to offer the first line of resistance against the attacking Persians, the pass at Thermopylae. Below me is the modern memorial built to commemorate the Battle of Thermopylae, which took place in 480 BC. Such is the impact of this battle that even after 2,500 years, we are still building memorials to commemorate it. In order to understand this battle, we've got to try to imagine what this area looked like in 480 BC. In those days, Thermopylae was a narrow pass which any army coming from the north to the south had to negotiate. We can see by the modern road here that it's still a very important thoroughfare. This is the national highway linking Athens to the north, and it's still one of the few places that you can get a road through in this region. In 480 BC, however, it looked quite different. The sea then came right in to about where you can see the road, leaving a very narrow gap between the mountains and the sea, sometimes as narrow as 4 metres, just wide enough for a cart to get through. The pass was the narrowest at the west gate, which is where you can see the spur of mountains coming down to the road in the middle distance. However, the hills there are easily crossed and it wasn't the best defensive position. As you came into the pass of Thermopylae, it opened up in this area that you can see below me, where there are still some hot springs that give Thermopylae its name. After you come through this area, you come to the middle pass where I'm now standing. Now this is the best defensive position because on one side you have very high cliffs, on the other side the sea, and it was here that the local people of the area, the Phocians, had built a wall in order to protect the pass of Thermopylae. It was to this wall that the Spartans came to offer their resistance to the Persians.
The decision to send the Spartans to Thermopylae was part of a united land and sea blockade to halt the Persian advance. With the Greek army in position at Thermopylae, the combined Greek navy also gathered at Artemisium. A line had been drawn across central Greece, a line far enough north to convince the Greek coalition that the major cities of the Peloponnese were interested in the defence of all Greece, not just the south. To Thermopylae, a core group of 300 Spartans, under the leadership of their king, Leonidas, had been sent, although total troop numbers on the Greek side were closer to 6,000. This was meant to be an advance guard, but reinforcements did not arrive before the battle, and it is possible they were being held in reserve for the final defence of Greece. On the morning of the battle, the Greeks, seen here in yellow, moved from their camp and took their places in front of the wall which protected the middle pass. At the same time, the Persians advanced south from their camp, through the west pass, towards the Greek army. In the narrow confines of the plain of Thermopylae, with no room for cavalry or outflanking manoeuvres, the two armies faced each other.
As the Persians attacked from the north, the Spartans and their allies took their stand around here in front of the wall. For 2 days, the Persians attacked with everything they had, and the Greeks resisted with all their might. As Herodotus says, the Persian army had many men, but only a few soldiers. The Greeks, with their superior training, longer spears, and the determination of those defending their homeland, withstood everything the Persians could throw at them.
Then, like so many other times throughout the Persian wars, treachery struck. A local man, in search of a rich reward, saw the advantage of helping the Persians against his fellow Greeks. On the second night of fighting, he led the best of the Persian troops, the so-called Immortals, along a mountain track behind Thermopylae. This breakthrough enabled the Persians to begin a plan to surround the Greek forces, both from the north and the south.
Leonidas, having warning of this move, dismissed most of the Allied troops as they had lost their will to fight, but he and the 300 Spartans, along with the Thespians who refused to retreat, and some Thebans who were held here as hostages very much against their will, remained to hold off the Persians. A bitter battle was to follow, with the Greeks not giving an inch, and the Persian troops being whipped from behind to keep them fighting. Leonidas fell, and a brutal struggle raged over his body. 4 times the Greeks had to drive off their enemy before they could retrieve the body. By now the spears of the Greeks were broken, and they fought the Persians with their swords, never surrendering.
The Persians now came down the mountain track and started to attack from the south. The Greeks were surrounded and in a hopeless position. Yet because the Spartans would never surrender, they kept on fighting.
Many of the invaders fell, and many fell into the sea and were drowned, and still more were trampled to death by their friends. The Greeks, who knew that death was inevitable, put forth all their strength and fought with fury and determination.
With the Persians attacking both from the front and the rear, the Greeks fell back through the gates of the wall and took their last stand on this low hill. Here they fought back to back with their swords if they had them, with their hands and teeth if they did not. Finally, the sheer numbers of the Persians overwhelmed the Greeks and they fell to a man. The battle was over, and across the innumerable corpses, a silence descended.